Hello race fans, welcome to another video. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and make sure to leave a like, comment, share this video, and ring the bell to stay up to date on future uploads. Today we will be going over the Xfinity Rockingham race, and considering what we saw this weekend overall, I can safely say this has been the highlight of the month of April so far. Again, who would have thought? We started this month looking forward to Darlington and Bristol, only for the Cup races to fall flat and raise alarming concerns about the Gen 7. And in an ironic twist of fate, it's the one off weekend for Cup that ended up being the best of the month. Because this is the only off weekend the Cup Series has. After this, it's non-stop until November. So the fact that this weekend ended up being a success in large part due to the Cup cars not hitting the track, again, this is not a good look for NASCAR. The truck race was pretty good, and while Xfinity had its moments towards the end, it wasn't as chaotic as, say, Martinsville was. There were a lot of cautions, especially towards the end, yeah, but they were well spread out for the most part, which allowed us to see some green flag action. But most importantly, we did see several battles for the lead. Comers and goers, passing all throughout, strategy calls, and both stages were decided on strategy due to some cautions coming out in opportune moments. And with the late race chaos, we even saw the element of attrition play a part. Again, the track being freshly repaved played a huge part on the racing product being an overall net positive. Yeah, there were some dull moments, especially in those long green flag runs in stage 3 where it felt like nothing was happening, but drivers were racing the racetrack, not just themselves. Rockingham throughout its history has had a reputation of being a top little racetrack that always brings out the best in drivers, and that was evident throughout the race as we saw several drivers slip and slide just trying to keep their cars from snapping on them. It was great. It should have been pretty obvious from the moment that Connor Silich won the pole with a flat tire that this would be a very eventful race. And to top it all off, we got some contentious moments and even a couple of disqualifications, and we'll get into that later. But let's first dive into the incident between William Sawalich and Catherine Legg, because I have a couple things to say about that. So Catherine had just signed a part-time deal to run some Xfinity races for Jordan Anderson in the number 32. Since she failed to qualify for the race, the team bought out the Joy Gaze 53 that JJ Yeley had originally qualified for her to run. And because the 53 is not the 32, again, that's a backmarker car she was running, probably even slower than the 32 if you ask me. It was a similar situation to the one she was putting at the Phoenix Cup race a couple weeks ago, as this was not just a slow car, but she had never raced in it. But yeah, this incident happened early, lap 52. Sawalich and Nick Sanchez were racing for the lead and they came across her. Sanchez passed her, but Sawalich rammed into the back of her, paused, and ended up wrecking her out of the race, while also collecting arguably the biggest story of the weekend in Casey Kane, who was making his return to NASCAR for his first start since 2018, racing for RCR in the 33. He got collected, big damage on the right front that would put him behind the 8 ball and effectively take him out of contention for the win. And that was a shame too, because I felt that if he never got that damage, he would have not only been up there racing for the win, but by virtue of racing up front, he would have avoided being involved in another incident later on that compounded his right front damage with some left side fender damage too. Granted, Casey did eventually recover to finish 15th in the race, or 14th after post-race inspection. Again, we'll get into that later. But considering how promising his day started, with him qualifying in the top 5 and running in the top 3 earlier, I was definitely frustrated. Now, most of my frustration was directed at Catherine herself. After all, she was on the leader's way when she shouldn't have been. Like, why are you racing so close to them when you're that slow to begin with? But after cooling off and looking at the replay, William Sawalich deserves some part of it too. Mostly due to his inexperience, but still, I'd say 70% of the blame goes to Catherine for giving the 18 little room to work with on such short notice, and the other 30% goes to William for his inexperience racing around lap traffic. Mind you, this is the same guy that Arca braked the hell out of Connor Silage at Bristol last week. Maybe if it was someone else in his place, I wouldn't be as critical, but that's the second straight week in a row he has thrown away a top 10, potentially a top 5 run due to his inexperience, and this is now his 6th consecutive finish outside the top 20, so I don't know how many more passes I can give him for poor performance. That being said, even though I mostly blame Catherine for that, I do not condone the responses on social media just attacking her, saying, "Why are women even racing in NASCAR?" and all those colorful responses you would expect from that crowd. And this was coming, okay? You know how NASCAR fans are. They tend to be extremely negative and overly critical towards women and other minorities. Let me be clear. I want women to succeed in NASCAR. I even gave Catherine a pass when she had the incident that took out Daniel Suarez at Phoenix, and I even took to social media to defend her because I was of the opinion that she was set up to fail. Obviously, I'm not going to be as nice to her this time. I do still believe she was set up to fail to some extent, but I also believe that she could have done some things better in the moment. She's not exempt from criticism, that's all I'm saying. If a woman does something out there on the track that I consider was her fault, I'm gonna rightfully call her out, just like I would do to any other driver, regardless of if they're a man or woman. Yeah, the blame falls on both drivers in the end, but it's mostly on Catherine because she put the 18 in a very compromising situation he was too inexperienced to manage. But yeah, again, this race was all over the place, but in a good type of way. I mentioned how some of the cautions came with less than 10 laps to go in the stage, which shuffled the field when it came time to award stage points. Obviously, Nick Sanchez stayed out and won stage 1 because of it, and Dean Thompson did the same to win stage 2, but they were not the only guys who benefited from this shuffling. Matt DiBenedetto scored points in both stages, same with Jeremy Clemens, Kyle Sieg as well. Anthony Alfredo finished top 5 on both stages, and even if some of those guys finished poorly in the end for X or Y reason, those stage points more than helped make up for that. Jeb Burton was one of the big winners though. Top 5 on both stages and an 8th place finish, easily a 40 plus point day for him. Also a big winner was Parker Retzlaff, who, by the way, he and Alpha Prime Racing just had a career race. Parker qualified second and finished second in stage 1. Came down with a flat tire midway through, but battled back from that and ended up finishing second, with his teammate Brennan Poole finishing 4th for his second top 5 in the last 4 races. So, double top 5 for Alpha Prime Racing and a career race for Retzlaff. Ryan Sieg also had a career day, finished 3rd in stage 1, and then used a strategy call early in stage 3 to take the lead, and he would end up leading the most laps after defending himself from Jesse Love, who was, in my opinion, the guy to beat in this race. He got a fast race car, was very aggressive, making moves to move up the field. The way he manipulated air or packed air into the back bumper of the guy in front of him to moving out of the way for position. And Ryan Sieg was holding him off for a good 30 to 40 laps before the caution came out. It was beautiful to watch. Really heartbreaking when his 39 car sputtered towards the end and lost the lead under caution because he didn't maintain pace speed. But I will admit, he was really tight on fuel, so it was a bit of a stretch even with the cautions we got during that fuel run that he would be able to pull off the win. Now the final few cautions we got afterwards for other guys also running out of fuel definitely helped him salvage an 18th place finish, but man, add that one to the list of what could have been for Ryan Sieg. At least he got awarded with the fastest lap of the race after inspection, because he originally didn't win the fastest lap. Jesse Love had originally won and had also set the fastest lap, but just a few hours after the race ended, it was discovered that the two had an issue with the rear suspension and was thus disqualified, awarding the win to the guy who finished second in Sammy Smith. Also worth mentioning Justin Bonsignor was also disqualified due to his car having 3 loose lock nuts. But since he had DNF'd earlier in the race, this doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, okay? He had finished like 36. Like, what failing post-race inspection gonna do to him? Oh, he's gonna go from 36 down to 38th, okay? Big whoop. Now, it still remains to be seen whether RCR will appeal. As of the time of making this video, they haven't posted any statements about that, on what their plans are regarding that, or if they will appeal or not. But at the moment, Sammy Smith ends up with the win, and $100K for winning the Dash for Cash, the final Dash for Cash race of the season. And regardless of what happens with Jesse Love, they cannot take that money away from him, because he was the highest finisher among the eligible drivers already. So I have no doubt he will use that money to pay off his Martinsville fine. And he also locks himself into the playoffs after that points penalty sent him back to the bubble when he would have otherwise been like 80 points above the cut line. Guess none of that matters now because he won. But man, I really hope Rockingham is here to stay too, because ever since the turn of the century, NASCAR has been iffy about coming back here long term for whatever reason. Mainly due to attendance, which is why they cut it from the Cup schedule after 2004. But the turnout for this weekend as a whole was pretty good, so I feel like it deserves to come back for a Cup race in the near future. That being said, a part of me is genuinely concerned about the Gen 7 kart producing yet another stinker of a race. So if you ask me, I would much rather have NASCAR fix the issues with their kart first before hosting a Cup race here, because the last thing I want is for fans to turn on this track and go, oh, whoa, 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 why did we even return here? You know how fickle these NASCAR fans are. But yeah, we should have never left Rockingham in the first place. It's a legacy track on the same vein as Darlington, Martinsville, and North Wilkesboro, with grassroots ties to the sport. So it deserves its place as a mainstay on the NASCAR schedule, if you ask me.